In 1158 BCE, a group of men did something no human being had ever been recorded doing before. They stopped working for a living god. They walked off the tomb of a pharaoh, a man believed to be divine, and refused to lift another chisel until he fed their families. This is the story of the world's first recorded labor strike. And it didn't happen in a factory. It happened in the desert. On the west bank of the Nile, hidden behind sun-baked cliffs across from the great city of Thebes, sat a small walled village. Today we call it Deir el-Medina. The men who lived there weren't farmers. They weren't soldiers. They were the most skilled artisans in the entire kingdom, master stonecutters, painters, plasterers, and carpenters, hand-picked by the state for one sacred mission, to carve the tombs of the pharaohs themselves in the Valley of the Kings. Their work was so secret, their village was sealed off, guarded, watched. These men weren't slaves, they were elite, the pharaoh's chosen. And that's exactly what makes what happened next unthinkable. By ancient standards, life in Deir el-Medina was good. The state fed them, clothed them, even did their laundry. Their wages came in sacks: emmer wheat, barley, fish, oil, beer, cloth, enough to feed a wife, raise children, and live with dignity. They worked in two crews, the left gang and the right gang, 8 days at the tomb, 2 days home with their families, a rhythm that had held steady for generations. The deal was simple. Their hands built eternity for the pharaoh, and the pharaoh kept their families alive. For most of Egypt's history, that bargain held until it didn't. Year 29 of Pharaoh Ramesses III. Ramesses had spent decades repelling invasions, the Libyans, the mysterious sea peoples, and pouring gold into temples to thank the gods for victory. The wars were won, but the treasury was empty. And when an empire runs out of money, the people who feel it first are the ones who can't grow their own food. The grain rations started arriving late, then half empty, then not at all. A scribe named Amennakhte, the man who kept the workers' records, begged a nearby temple for emergency grain just to keep the children fed. It wasn't enough. Wives went hungry, children cried. Men who had carved the gates of paradise watched their families starve. And then one morning, they did the unthinkable. The 10th day, second month of the inundation, year 29. The workers put down their tools. They didn't riot. They didn't burn anything. They didn't even shout. They just walked. Past the first guard post, past the second, past all 5 checkpoints that were designed to keep them in. In broad daylight, in full view of the authorities, they marched into the back courtyard of the mortuary temple of Thutmose III, a sacred space, untouchable. And they sat down. And they refused to move. When officials came to talk them back to work, Amennakhte recorded their words exactly. Read that again. They weren't demanding more. They were asking for what they had already earned. The authorities panicked. They rushed grain from the storehouses of 3 mortuary temples: Thutmose III, Ramesses II, Seti I. The men went back to work, but the bargain was broken, and everyone knew it. Within weeks, they walked out again, and again. They blocked the roads to the Valley of the Kings. They demanded their grievances be written down, sent directly to the vizier, Egypt's prime minister. They had discovered something dangerous. Their labor was power. And through every strike, every confrontation, every desperate negotiation, Amennakhte kept writing. Every date, every demand, every reply. On a single roll of papyrus that survived 3,000 years of empires, sandstorms, and silence, to sit today in a glass case in Turin, Italy. Here's what makes this story extraordinary. These men weren't rebels. They weren't trying to overthrow anyone. They were the most privileged workers in their world, the artisans of eternity itself. and even they reached a breaking point. No weapons, no violence, just a quiet walk past the walls, a sit-in on sacred ground, and one scribe who thought to write it all down. 3,000 years before unions, 3,000 years before labor laws, 3,000 years before anyone had a word for what they were doing, they already knew.